Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Watching Society, a video supplement to our usual podcast dedicated to suspense, crime, and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
We love mysterious old-time radio stories, but do they stand the test of time? Sure, a lot of them do. But that's not what we're here to find out this time. Today, we're watching a TV adaptation of one of these radio stories and discussing whether or not it stands the test of time.
Veteran writer Wyllis Cooper teamed up with producer Fred Coe to create a televised version of Lights Out, a radio program created by Cooper back in 1934. The first show debuted on NBC on June 30th, 1946, and 3 more installments were released that year. Unfortunately, no known recordings survived, but critics heaped praise upon the productions.
Variety magazine said it's usually considered in bad taste for a reviewer to use superlatives in describing a show. Sometimes, however, such a course of action cannot be helped. After a 3-year break, the show returned as a regularly scheduled series, running weekly until 1952. Over 150 episodes were produced in total. It is sometimes said that if it was the first TV show to feature science fiction, which is not exactly accurate. Although the series began before others that included sci-fi, Lights Out itself didn't feature the genre until after other series such as Captain Video and his Video Rangers hit the air.
The regular series featured a narrator played by Jack LaRue from 1949 until 1950, after which Frank Gallup took over the role for the remainder of the run. The rotating cast of guest stars included such notables as John Forsythe, Jonathan Harris, Stephen Hill, Ross Martin, E.G. Marshall, Burgess Meredith, Leslie Nielsen, Robert Stack, John Carradine, and in today's episode, Basil Rathbone. The episode we are about to watch is Dead Man's Coat, a story Wyllis Cooper adapted from one of his scripts for his other well-known creation, Quiet Please.
And by no coincidence whatsoever, we just listened to that episode of Quiet Please as part of our normal Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. We'll include a link to that episode in the notes so you can compare the adaptation to the original and listen to our discussion. Please check it out. But you're here now, so join us as we watch Dead Man's Coat from the TV series Lights Out, first broadcast May 14th, 1951.
It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from a flickering television set. Watch the images dance across the screen, listen to the sounds coming from the speaker, and let the glow surround you.
Lights Out.
Hello. If a man would be invisible, let him go into a graveyard at the quarter hour before midnight and dig up from a grave a newly buried corpse. Then let him remove the coat from the corpse and put it on. And if he shall finish his dreadful work ere the hour of midnight striketh, then hath he gained the power to be invisible. But let him who doeth this...
Turn it off, Gregory.
Yes. For in...
Lot of silly nonsense. I said it was a lot of silly nonsense.
Yes, sir, I suppose it is, sir.
I suppose you believe it. You're a fool, Gregory.
Yes, sir.
It's impossible, you know that.
May I go now, sir?
No, you may not go. What are you hinting at?
I'm not hinting, sir, at anything.
You've heard of the superstition before, haven't you?
Not quite sure that it is a superstition, sir.
Get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Invisible. Put on a dead man's coat. That fool Gregory.
Wouldn't be bad, though, if...
invisible. The things you could do to people. Wouldn't be bad, would it? Gregory!
Yes, sir?
Bring me another drink.
Yes, sir.
What I could do to people.
Your drink, sir. Evening paper just came, sir.
All right, get out.
Yes, sir. News of Mr. Ingram's funeral is in the paper tonight, sir. He was buried today, sir.
And why not? He was dead.
Yes, sir. I was sorry to hear that.
I wasn't. I hated him.
The man's dead, sir.
And good riddance. Now get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Archibald Ingram, age 44, who died recently at his country home in Northport, was buried this afternoon at 3 p.m. in Lakeside Cemetery. Gregory!
Yes, sir?
Gregory, do you really think there's anything in
what, sir?
in what the fellow was saying on the television, you fool?
You mean about the dead man's grave, sir?
Yes.
Coat? No, sir. I think it's absolute nonsense.
Give me a light, Gregory.
Yes, sir.
Come on, Gregory. We've got to be finished by midnight. Oh, let me in that grave. Here, give me that shovel. What time is it?
11 minutes before midnight, Mr. Francis.
Don't mention my name, you fool.
I'm sorry, sir. There's nobody around.
And if you won't help, at least shut up.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't help it. I'm afraid.
Everybody here is dead, except you and me.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't do it, sir.
What time is it now?
9 minutes before midnight, sir.
Aha! I found it. Gregory,
Yes, sir.
hand me down that heavy screwdriver.
Yes, sir.
No. Give me that axe. There isn't enough time.
No, sir, you wouldn't do that,
The
sir.
axe. Oh, no, Mr. Francis! Will you shut up? Come on, Ingram. Let go of it. Gregory, take this axe.
Yes.
Gregory. There, I've got it. Now we'll see, Ingram, old boy. Or rather, we won't see, will we, Ingram? Nobody'll see. Gregory!
Want to put it on, Gregory?
Where are you going?
Thought you'd run away.
Thought you'd run away, did you? Thought you'd run away and pass the word to the police. My boss is a grave robber, you were going to tell them. Well, you just listen to me, my lad. You try anything like that, and you know what I'll do.
No, sir.
Do you think the police will take the word of an ex-convict against mine? Why, I've got enough on you to hang you, Gregory, and you know it. So if you try anything...
No, son, I won't tell, son, I won't tell.
You know you won't. Yeah. Because if I don't turn you over to the police, I'll... Why, I'm going to be invisible, Gregory. You won't be able to see me. Nobody will be able to see me when I try a lying throat out with my bare hands. I'll be invisible, and I'll murder you or anybody else that I want to. Now, get to work. And fill in that grave where some grave robber tore it up. Well, what are you waiting for? Get down in that grave.
No, son, I won't. Don't. Please don't make me get down in that grave, sir.
And hurry up.
Mr. Francis? Mr. Francis? Mr. Francis! Don't go away and leave me here. Mr. Francis! Where are you, Mr. Francis?
Keep quiet, you fool. Can't you see I'm wearing the dead man's coat, Gregory?
All right, give it to me. No, over here.
Still not used to it, eh, Gregory?
Can I get you anything else, sir?
Get your hat.
My hat, sir.
We're going out.
Did you say going out, sir?
We're going to call on my friend Hamilton.
Oh, no, sir.
Mr. Hamilton is going to die a most untimely death, Gregory. A most regrettable occurrence, Gregory. But my friend Hamilton made the serious error of treating me very badly. And I promised him that one day I'd get even with him.
But you wouldn't murder Mr. Hamilton, sir?
Oh, yes, I would, my lad. I'd have done it long ago if I thought I could get away with it. But now...
But he won't even let you in to see him, sir.
Oh, yes, he will, Gregory, because you, my dear boy, are going to take me there.
No, sir, either.
No. And you're going to telephone my dear friend, Mr. Hamilton, and tell him that you must see him at once. You're going to tell him that you're in constant fear of your life. Which you are, Gregory, aren't you? And you're going to make an appointment with him.
No, sir! I won't be a party to murder.
Fooled you, eh? Now, you'll do precisely as I tell you, and you know why you will, don't you? You'll be a party to murder or anything else I want you to. And if anything happens during our little session with friend Hamilton, if anybody interrupts us, why then, my dear fellow, you'll be found alone with a murdered man. Because I'm wearing the dead man's coat. So win, lose, or draw, you're it. Now, take this phone.
Therefore, gentlemen, we should very much like a response to our letter of the 18th, I believe it was, in which we informed you that we were about to send to you a shipment of the latest...
Excuse me, Mr. Hudson.
Right ahead.
Yes? Hold on, please.
What is it, Miss Parmalee?
There's a gentleman outside to see you, a Mr. Gregory.
Oh, yes. Yes, Miss Parmalee. Ask him to come in.
Have him wait, please.
And you may go to lunch.
Yes, sir.
We do not wish to be disturbed.
Yes, sir. You may come in now, if you please, sir.
Ah, Gregory. Come in. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Well, I must say you are in a state. What's that scoundrel Francis been up to now?
He's going to... Hi.
I mean, Mr. Francis.
Oh, there's a draft from the window. Not too much for you, is it?
No, sir.
Well, now, what's happened? Oh, I feel sorry for you, Gregory. I'm sure it's no secret to you how much he hates me, so I suppose we're both in the same boat, aren't we? Gregory, what can I do to help you? You sounded most upset when you called him a phone. Don't tell me he's been threatening you.
Lock the door, Gregory.
What did you say, Gregory?
Lock the door. No.
What's the matter with you, Gregory?
There's nothing the matter with Gregory Hamilton. Lock the door, I said, or I'll kill you too. There, that's better.
Help! Gregory!
I told you I'd get you. You sneered at me, and you mocked me, and you...
Gregory!
Gregory can't help you, Hamilton. Don't you recognize my voice? It's Francis, the man who hates you, the man who swore he'd murder you, the man that you wouldn't see because you're afraid. No, sir! Stay where you are, Gregory, or... Remember, you're the one that's alone here with Hamilton. You're weakening, Hamilton. Can't get your breath, can you? Can't see me. I'm looking right in your face, Hamilton, enjoying every second of your death scene. And you can't see me because I'm wearing the dead man's coat, Hamilton. Gregory, come here, Gregory.
Yes, sir.
They're burying good old Hamilton this afternoon. Died of a heart attack, paper says. Oh, don't worry, Gregory. You weren't suspected in the slightest.
Aye, sir.
You conducted yourself very well indeed at the coroner's inquest. With me standing beside you, you were extremely convincing. Mr. Hamilton was an excellent health gentleman when I let myself out of his office. One of the most interesting things about this dead man's coat, you never know where I am, Gregory. Nobody knows where I am.
Can I get you a drink, sir?
No. You and I are going out. We're going to a funeral, Gregory. If I mistake not, the first of a good many funerals you and I will be attending. Now, let me see. We check off Hamilton. Then there's Mackenzie, Beveridge, Carteret. Get your hat, I said we're late. Dead man's coat. Very, very useful. Well, very touching. Come on, Gregory.
Where are you going, sir?
Why, I'm going to watch them lay away my good old friend Hamilton.
You said you wouldn't do that, sir.
Gregory. Why, of course I can do that. I want to be sure he doesn't get out.
Please, sir, let's get away from this place.
Wait for me. I'm going in to say goodbye to my dear old friend.
What's the matter, Ben?
I thought I bumped into somebody.
Nobody in there but him.
Well, it sure felt just like somebody standing in my way.
Well, if he is, he sure was invisible. Sir?
Huh?
Speaking to me?
Sounded like it came from inside.
No, it was me, sir.
Gregory, you said?
Yes, my name's Gregory. I was the last person to see poor Mr. Hamilton alive, sir.
I see. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. You lock the door.
Oh, sure. Just put a new lock on just before the funeral. Good, strong lock. Nobody will ever get in there.
Or out either.
Ben.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Francis. Mr. Francis, it's Gregory.
Get that door open, Gregory.
I can't, sir. It's locked.
I heard him, you fool. Are they out of sight yet?
Yes?
Well, hammer on the lock. You hear me? Try that door. There's nothing in here to get hold of. Go to the car and get some tools. Try them. Hurry up.
Right, there's nothing in the car, sir.
Well, get something and try.
Very well, sir.
And hurry up. It's cold in here.
Yes, sir, I'm sure it is.
Let me take a last look at you, old friend.
What did you bring? What did you bring?
File, sir.
A file? You can't break the lock with a file.
I thought perhaps the bars, sir.
Well, get started. Get started, I tell you.
No, sir.
What? What did you say?
I said no, sir.
Gregory?
I'm not going to try and file through those bars, sir.
Well, you're fooling, Gregory.
No, I'm not, sir.
But Gregory, you're not going to leave me in here.
No, sir.
Oh, I knew you were only fooling, Gregory. Come on and...
No, sir.
Gregory!
Now, you listen to me, sir. I'm master here now, sir.
Gregory, listen.
I brought this file just to ease my own conscience.
No!
I don't suppose you know what that means, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gregory. Good old Gregory, I'm sorry.
It's a bit too late for that now, sir. You're a murderer, Mr. Francis. And you're already planning other murders.
I was joking, Gregory.
And you're a
please.
grave robber, too. And you've treated me very badly. You had me sent to prison. You knew I wasn't guilty.
Oh, I'll make it up to you, Gregory. Oh, Gregory, old friend. Think of how many years we've been together.
And you've mistreated me, sir. You've struck me. And you've threatened my life.
Oh, no. You can't leave me here, Gregory.
So I've made up my mind that you've got to be punished, sir. It's your own misdeeds, after all. You've nobody to blame but yourself.
Oh, Gregory, please. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you.
But you won't be making it up to Mr. Ingram, sir. Whose body you robbed. Nor Mr. Hamilton, who's lying inside with you there now, sir.
No, no.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Says in the Bible, but you wouldn't have read the Bible much, would you, sir? It says, judge not that ye be not judged. Well, I'm not judging you, Mr. Francis. I'm going to give you a chance.
Oh, Gregory, I know you would. Good old Gregory.
Go for crying out, sir. There'll be nobody here. There's nobody around for miles. And if and when they do finally come, sir, and they open this door, you won't be dead.
No, no, no! No, no, no.
You're probably reaching out through the bars now, sir.
Give it to me. Give it to me, Gregory.
You might be able to reach it, sir. And then again, you might not, sir. But if you can reach it, and it doesn't break before you file through them bars, very well then, sir, I was wrong. I'm not judging you, Mr. Francis. You judged yourself when you put on that dead man's coat.
NBC Television.
That was Dead Man's Coat from the television show Lights Out, here on the Mysterious Old Radio Watching Society video broadcast. This is our first one, so I don't have a patter yet for that. Once again, I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
And welcome to our first video broadcast of a old-time radio show made into a television show. And this was Lights Out doing a Dead Man's Coat, which was originally done on Quiet Please, written by Wyllis Cooper, who made up this whole folklore about wearing a dead man's coat. And finally, we did this on the podcast. So now finally we had the opportunity, because in the podcast I couldn't compare and contrast to the television show, which I really want to do. But now I don't have to worry about it. So I'm really excited about that. Hey, Joshua, you picked both of these episodes, and this is our inaugural for radio shows becoming TV shows video watching thing. Why'd you pick this Lights Out?
Well, it's Wyllis Cooper, and he's one of our favorites on the podcast. So I couldn't resist an episode that was both a radio show and a TV show, because it seemed like just a perfect pairing to try to delve into what separates the two. How does this function as a TV show in a different way than his radio script functioned as a radio show? And I think as we get into discussion, we'll see there are still some theater of the mind elements at play in early television. And so I found all that fascinating, and it has Rathbone in it. So I couldn't resist that, right? Because I knew I'd have Eric on board at the very least.
Well, I was very excited about Rathbone, and then I got the thing, and I started watching. Right, Basil Rathbone. And I don't know what happens to me. I quickly drift, I quickly drift. And something happened, and the guy comes up on the television and starts talking, and then they start backing up. And I immediately forgot that Basil Rathbone was in it, like immediately. So here's what happened to me. I spent this whole episode watching this thing going, this guy playing the butler, I like him. He's pretty good. And then
that kid's got a future.
That kid's got a future, that guy. And so then it gets to the end, says Basil Rathbone. Oh, man. But I will tell you, it was also a testimony to Rathbone, right? I mean, first of all, this is a side of Basil Rathbone performance-wise I have never seen him do before. I have never seen him play this terrified and meek and paralyzed. I've never seen that. He's always been such a strong, significant character player in everything that I've seen, at least. So I was really impressed. Also, he looks good in a little pencil-thin mustache.
I had the same thing of like, when he's being browbeaten by his boss there, do you know who you are talking to? Sherlock Holmes. Is he Sheriff Nottingham? Is that the right role he was playing in Robin Hood? Because you don't talk to him like that. Oh.
Or Sherlock Holmes, or the son of Frankenstein. Like, these are not men you mess around with.
Right.
And I think that affected the way I watched this, because I kept thinking that Gregory the butler had a plan. The way he let it slip out at the beginning that he actually did believe in the dead man's coat. And I thought he'd been put upon, and then he was manipulating Mr. Francis into doing this. I mean, eventually he is put upon, and turns on him. But I thought it was going to be a master plan type.
Right. Not something that just occurred to him because of a lucky break of him being locked in a crypt. I'm going to say it again. I just found Rathbone's performance of this brilliant. I really enjoyed watching him play this, and it just solidified even more how much I love the man.
And I'm not sure if this was mentioned in the opening, so I want to underscore it again. This was live.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about that. I'm really impressed by it.
Theater performance.
Mm-hmm. The fact that it's live is another reason I loved it so much. You can watch this with a modern eye, and yeah, that doesn't stand the test of time, and that's not very interesting to watch until you start to realize what's at their disposal. The fact that they're doing it live, the fact that it's new kind of way of thinking about things in television, or television in general is a new way of thinking about things. The fact that it's done live makes me like it even more, because that's hard to do what they did. And there are really phenomenal mistakes. Phenomenal mistakes. If you didn't catch it, I'm going to just this is my favorite thing in this episode. Rathbone says outside the grave they're digging, there's nobody here. And a guy walks in the picture. In the background, some grip is in the background, looks around and runs off. Yeah, live television, man.
A lot of the praise that came to this show went to James Coe as a producer, for being very innovative in a very young art form. In the first episode, it's sort of a first-person experience, and at the end of the show, the character dies and the camera just goes black. And the thing that holds up here, that it's a weird middle ground between live theater and focused attention television, and he does fascinating things with it, and it's really good.
Well, you've got the two competing visuals going on. You have early television trying to mirror film by pulling off special effects and all the invisibility shtick, I'll call it, with handing him the drink off screen, the telephone receiver pulled up by a string, and that is all so visual. And then you have that grave digging scene, which to me utilizes theater of the mind. We have Rathbone in the foreground and Mr. Francis in the background digging, and visually all we have is Rathbone's face, the horror on his face, and he is hearing what we're hearing. He's hearing Mr. Francis break through the coffin and grapple with the body to get the coat off, and he's like, let go of this coat, whatever he says. And so that's very, very clever for live television. And again, it's falling back on theater of the mind, because I'm assuming not only could they have technically pulled it off, but this is early television. They might not have allowed them to show some guy pulling a corpse out of a coffin and ripping his coat off and throwing the body back in. So this is more suspenseful. That is hands down my favorite scene in this.
Plus,
story.
it's hard to find an equity dead actor.
Many I wish were dead. But
I love you. I'm going to piggyback on something you said about, the glass going off. You don't have in a live show, especially at the time, a lot of, how are you going to do the invisible guy, right? Mm-hmm. How are you going to do this? What shortcuts are you going to have to take that don't become ridiculous? I loved everything they came up with. Yes, dangling phone from fishing wire, but the things they did was mostly actors, Rathbone for the most part, just him looking around, handing the glass off screen instead of trying to figure out how is an invisible guy going to come in and take this glass. I was really struck by their resourcefulness of how to, in this limited environment, and to create an invisible person. And they also did it, if you notice, pushing in, coming out, so that the camera moving slightly, which, as you can see when you watch it, isn't a great thing to do back then, because they're manually focusing that camera as they go. It's not automatic focus, so you can see the blur. That camera guy's got to, as they're moving in, he's got to move something to focus in. So it's a risk to do that. But the covering of that by camera movement, I just was really have a lot of respect for how they figured out how to do that with no way to have an invisible guy. Also wanted to say, and you brought it up, I'm astounded also by the amount of invisible stage combat these actors went through.
I was going to say, that actor who was being strangled, like, if the task was, all right, just act like you're being strangled, 99 of 100 times that would look awful.
Yes.
He looked really good.
That is Norman Rose, and I noted that too. Like, that guy is a good mime being strangled guy.
I mean, and I've seen a lot of mimes being strangled. So
yeah.
He's the voice of the Dimension X, Norman Rose. He's in all sorts of CBS radio mystery theater. He's the voice of Juan Valdez. We have listened to him many times on the podcast.
That's right.
See him in person being strangled by an invisible guy.
Yeah.
I love the shortcut that the script uses. He's a businessman because he's playing golf in his office and dictating.
Right. We don't need right.
That's it. We know.
That's right. Just that simple, clean setup. But just to reemphasize what Tim said, not only him, but I also thought Rathbone. I thought the physicality of their the stage combat, what they pulled off, has a huge possibility and propensity to be ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I didn't ever have a moment for a really old show that you would think that we would watch and go, yeah, that's old and awful and weird. You know, I think we mentioned it in the opening, some of the other shows that were on at that time, some TV shows that were done live, some of the sci-fi stuff for kids too. It's just terrible. You can't even get through it. You can't get through it. It's right up there with Captain Kangaroo. But this, I was just really impressed by all of it.
I'm now thinking of an invisible man strangling Captain Kangaroo. Thank you.
When aren't you?
Yeah. No, seriously, I mean, thank you.
So I really enjoyed that part of this as well. Let's break the story down, though. It's a lot different than Cooper's radio version.
Where's our Chicago bums?
I want to start by noting a very Wyllis Cooper thing. And it wasn't until the second time I watched it that it really stood out to me. And if you've never seen Lights Out before, the TV version, it always opens with that disembodied head introducing us like an old-time radio host. And so in this episode, when the camera pans back and we see that his head is in the television set and the characters in the story are watching him, that's something now we're pretty used to as a kind of postmodern reference. And Cooper did that a lot in Quiet Please. Arch Obler did it a lot in Lights Out, referencing the radio show. But Cooper takes a much bolder step here in that the announcer of the Lights Out TV show is giving the characters within the show the information. He is giving them the folk tale about wearing the dead man's coat.
Right.
It is the show itself is creating the show itself, which is very modern, very prescient for that level of pop is literally eating itself. Producing and eating itself.
I was also thinking as I watched that of like, I am so delighted that they have that guy kneeling down with his head poking up into a television.
Yeah.
And again, to like take that ridiculous trick and play it so seriously and just close the cabinet on him. I love both the story and the ridiculous way they have to tell it.
We have said in the past, as much as we love Rathbone, that he never made it through very many episodes of Sherlock Holmes on the radio without flubbing a line.
Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting that he did it again, even in this, you know, he screwed up the dead man's grave. Did you catch that? He said dead man's grave, and the other actor playing his boss, I don't know,
Mr. Francis.
Yeah, thank you. He says he says dead man's grave, and he starts his line, and over his line, Rathbone goes, "Coat." Like, wait, coat. And there was another moment as they're heading toward the grave that Rathbone obviously has jumped the line. He's jumped the line, and they're talking over each other. It's the only critique I have of Mr. Rathbone, but he's not great live, is he? At like perfection, like Orson Welles, and we've talked about this, like made like one mistake in his entire radio career, with dry reads and never seeing the script before. I'm making that up, but there are people that do it better than others do it without.
He made it up too.
The man's obviously more movie centric, where you can do another take. Yeah.
What I could do to people. That's my favorite line.
Well, how about this? I like this right here. When he realizes it, it's this. He looks right at the camera. He looks right at us. Oh, Jefferson. What was the guy's name? I forgot his name.
Gregory.
Jefferson. Gregory. Doesn't matter.
Close enough.
Close enough. So
I
yeah.
find it really interesting how simpler the TV version is than the radio show. I mean, the plots are similar. It's just by switching the characters, who they are, a rich businessman and his scaredy cat butler, from the two homeless guys in the radio show. They seem more like caricatures in the TV show, and because they are doing stage type acting, their acting seem like they're overacting compared to radio in general, but definitely to Quiet Please, which was understated for radio.
I'll agree with you, except for Rathbone. I felt Rathbone was right in the ballpark of some reality. But he seemed in a certain way to be doing kind of a different style of performance than everybody else who was doing a farce. The characters were completely over the top.
Mr. Francis, he's chewing the scenery. Unfortunately, most of it's cardboard, so he could chew it and be just fine.
I think that it's accurate to say that's some way adaptation from radio to TV, and also the time jump, the 1950s. Things I wanted a little more a flattened sort of storyline. That makes sense, of simpler storylines.
It's only 3 years, though. It's not that much of a time jump from 48 to 51.
It's a whole decade.
Shut up, Joshua. The differences in the plot itself. This is where I'm going to take on this TV show. I think they failed. If you listen to our podcast of the radio show, there's so much to talk about and how that's written, and there's so many layers and so much. What does this actually mean? And as you said, just having them be homeless people in Chicago, and that idea of them already being invisible. There is a lot of interesting things going on. This doesn't have much. There's not a lot of that interesting thing happening, other than it's a very straightforward guy gets invisible and gets his comeuppance. But the other thing that isn't in this that I wish they would have kept somehow, I really like the idea that in the radio show, the coat can't come off. You can't get it off, so it becomes a curse and not a lovely device to, rob banks and go into Joshua's house and see how many cats he actually has. I wish there were some things that he would have kept, some ideas he would have kept. And so I think it fails that way in a retelling of his own story.
By comparison, that ending beat of, I'm not going to judge you, I'm going to sort of leave this file here near kind of you and see if you are worthy enough to get yourself out of here.
Right.
Doesn't hold together as strongly as an idea as the ending of the radio show does.
Correct.
It's also weird because at the beginning of the story, right before Gregory turns off the TV, it sounds like the announcer is about to warn them that there is a downside to the coat. And they turn
Downside to the coat. Down to the coat. Thank you. Good night.
Oh my God.
But if you've heard the radio show first, it made me think that that was going to be a plot point, that there would be a curse to this coat.
Yeah.
Or a downlining, one or the other. Yes.
Yeah, I liked a lot about this television show. I did. I mentioned in the podcast that I watched this first before I listened to the radio show. And I really wish I would have done it the other way, because watching this gave away what the dead man's coat was all about, and therefore I knew what was about to happen in the radio version. And the radio version is story-wise, the story is superior to this.
The dialogue is superior.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's better about this. This really lives in the visual element because it's a TV show. But even taking that into consideration, it was a really weak ending to me, because it feels like the story goes forward and this convenient moment comes up and the butler turns on him, which is not a surprise because the butler has been abused for 22 minutes. So of course he's going to turn on him when he gets a chance. And it would be far more satisfying if it was more poetic justice, or if the butler had manipulated circumstances so that he could get his revenge. I mean, it was still great to see the butler find himself and decide enough is enough. This guy's going to murder more people. I've already been an accomplice to his crimes. I'm going to stop this. But it just felt tacked on. It was satisfying when he steps on his invisible hand. That I will give him.
Did I catch these details right? Of when he was trapped in that grave, there was another voice talking to him, like it was the ghost of his victim, or was I?
That moment too, and I wasn't sure.
I didn't hear it. You might just be hoping that there was a little more to the end.
Sometimes I hear voices.
Yeah, I think it should have ended with Rathbone throwing like small pebbles at him, trying to hit him.
I did like that Mr. Francis says, let me out of here. It's cold. I wish they had maybe pulled more out of there, because at least it would have been a nice irony to think that, oh, he dies of cold wearing the dead man's coat in that tomb, or it just needed a little.
It's because
something. He reached for like the biblical quote to kind of make it seem more meaningful, but really it wasn't, because ultimately Gregory is judging the hell out of him.
Right. Well, he's cold because the other guy was buried in a windbreaker. So it was an unfortunate guy to dig up instead of, the guy that
satin with a bowling logo on the back.
Right. Yeah, that guy. So, if you're going to kill
muscle shirt is what he got there.
That's the other thing about the radio show plot was you had to kill the guy, then get his coat. You had to be the perpetrator of the death and then take his coat. That was important to the mythology that was created. I think that's missing too. It would have been nice if he would have went. Nice is the weirdest thing. But listen to what I'm about to say. It would have been nice if he would have went and killed the guy first. That would have been.
But we all would have liked that.
Cooper took the TV show and made it about justice, or attempted to in the end, whereas the radio show is really about temptation.
Yep.
And what happens when you're tempted. So it has just totally different morals and themes to it.
Right.
And I prefer the radio one. I think it is you can relate to it more.
Well, unless anybody's got some final thoughts, should we send this to a test of time vote?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tim, does this television show, this episode of Lights Out, stand the test of time?
I would say so. These early TV shows always have a little bit of awkwardness to them and wonkiness because they're neither fish nor fowl in some ways. But that it's fun for me to see that sort of developmental stage of where they're figuring things out and innovating things, and like just like the idea of we're going to establish this guy's invisible by following him with the camera, and that you just are literally looking at a picture of nothing because that's what it's taking a picture of. So I think this show in particular does a really good job of being on the right side of an innovative show versus a show that just hasn't figured stuff out yet. And it's Wyllis Cooper, so even the second best version of the story is really good.
I will say, I also agree. I think this stands the test of time for me. I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea in general population. I think you have to have a certain amount of patience for watching something this old and archaic in its approach, and an appreciation for what's going on in the early stages of television and what they're trying to accomplish and how they're able to do and not do things. If you can approach it with that appreciation, I think it would stand the test of time for anybody. I think the story, if you don't compare it to the radio version of Quiet Please, is just fine. It's a good story. Some overacting of it, but if we didn't have that radio version, I think we wouldn't be so hard on it. A guy digs a guy up, takes his coat, and starts choking people. Also, the idea, I think the acting by Rathbone and Rose is fantastic, especially the physicalness of it. And again, I want to just give a lot of credit to this is done live. And yeah, there were some mistakes. Oh my God, the guy walked into the scene in the background in the woods. Oh, that was just beautiful. But that's a really hard thing to pull off. I really liked how they compensated. How are we, without special effects or the ability to do any special effects in live, going to compensate for an invisible guy? I liked what they came up with. And performances were very solid, especially by Rathbone. So I really enjoyed it. And I would like to just not compare it to the radio show and say, yeah, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to translate our radio podcast stand the test of time verdict into television, because old time radio ended in 1962. We have lots of other more modern audio dramas, but we don't have a completely modern world of audio dramas to compare old time radio to. So when we say it stands the test of time, it still is standing alone somewhat, where if we're looking at a TV show, there's no way this stands the test of time in that it is comparable to anything modern. By definition, its entertainment value, I think to a certain extent, is within its historical context almost entirely. And so that may be something we figure out about this podcast. Right. Is what are our categories at the end? But I think it lives and dies on Rathbone's performance. And I think he does a great job making you care about this just pitiable butler. And I was drawn in by that. I loved Cooper's postmodern meta stuff of having them watching lights out on the TV. I'm a sucker for that. I love that graveyard scene, but maybe I loved it so much because it's the scene that's the most like old time radio. And ironically, that stood the test of time for me more than the special effects invisible section. So I think this performances might seem stilted and hammy, but overall, I think this is a very ambitious piece of early television, and I think that's what makes it so watchable today.
I agree. Tim, tell them stuff.
Thank you all so much for watching this video. Thanks for visiting our YouTube page here, our channel. If you would be so kind, please do like and subscribe to our channel here. Leave a comment. Let us know if you enjoyed this, if you'd like to see more of these, because we got more of them in our back pocket to unload on you here. I can never get through this. 190 episodes of podcast. You think I'd get this down eventually? We'll bring more of these to you. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Look out!
That was Dead Man's Coat from the television show Quiet Please. Here on
It's Lights Out. This is the television version of Lights Out.
Why does he say Quiet Please at the top?
He doesn't. That's why. Or did you in your opening? You talk about Quiet Please, that's Wyllis Cooper, but you don't call this TV series.
No, I went through what you're doing earlier today, so it's right in the intro. But yes,
But don't they in the TV show say Quiet Please at the top of the television show?
That would be weird because it's Lights Out.
They do not. I'm not editing any of this out.
Well, we got a blooper reel now.
Okay, it is. It's Lights Out. Here we go.